The lungs of the planet may already be collapsing. Here in the Amazon, it's getting hotter and drier. In some places, trees are dying. The fate of this rainforest, just one of the tipping points on which we're teetering and that start to trip as we exceed 2 degrees of warming. Our correspondents and I have headed around the world to understand whether net zero has become a punchline or coming faster than you think, and whether it's coming fast enough. What do we have to show for 30 years of climate talks? It was slow in coming, but America had started to embrace renewable energy until, that is, an ill wind started blowing from the White House. If the fight against climate change was an action movie, Donald Trump would definitely be cast as the arch villain, and his reach is extending a long way. As far as we're going, 30 miles off the coast of North America. Whirling blades in the ocean, Donald Trump, not a fan. The Revolution Wind project was nearly 80% complete when the Trump administration ordered work to halt immediately, leaving the $5 billion project in limbo. Those blades are 200 meters from tip to tip, and when these turbines are connected to the grid, just a single rotation of this turbine would generate enough electricity to power the average American household for a year. And this entire project, 60 plus turbines, should provide electricity for about 350,000 homes. But will it? A temporary injunction has allowed construction to continue for now, but its future is uncertain. A massive setback for the industry and those helping to build it.
I am a Trump supporter. I've always been a Trump supporter because I've always felt that as a fisherman, Trump has had our backs as working men.
Gary, like many lifelong fishermen, was sceptical of the new wind farm. But he and nearly 100 others were offered work and training to support construction, bringing in more than $20 million to the fishing community. Then the man he voted for stopped the work and their paychecks.
I'm puzzled why he did what he did at this juncture of a wind farm that's 80% completed. I don't understand why.
With Mr. Trump and wind, it's always been complicated. And a particular beef goes all the way back to 2012, when he tried and failed to sue the Scottish government for ruining the view from his golf course in Aberdeenshire, and he's certainly not forgotten.
They're ugly, they don't work, they kill your birds. I look over the horizon and I see 9 windmills, like right at the end of the 18th. I said, isn't that a shame? Wind is a disaster, it's a very expensive joke.
Trump, framing green policies as lavish and pointless, fires up his political supporters.
But who's the energy going to?
I mean,
not me. You know what I mean?
Well, it will be, won't it? When they connect it to the grid, you're all going to get cheaper power.
You believe that?
So when the president said we're going to shut them down, and he halted Revolution Wind, I think it was.
Yeah.
You supported that, you agree?
Yeah. I support pretty much whatever he says.
Ironically, for the MAGA movement, offshore wind has just started to bring jobs and major investment to ports supporting the industry. The forecast for further growth, under Donald Trump at least, is bleak to non-existent.
Because this is a big project, but the next one's a $4 billion project. The one after that's a $4 billion project, and those are in jeopardy right now. And the threat to the longer-term jobs here is real. These days, I just don't know where the Trump administration is planning to go.
Well, rounding on giant windmills is only the start of it.
This climate change, it's the greatest con job ever perpetrated on the world.
The White House has cut $25 billion in climate funding, purging thousands of scientists from associated roles and erasing decades of climate data. It's opened millions of acres of land for oil and gas drilling, removed tax breaks for renewables and given new ones to coal.
This Trump administration is much worse than the first one. They're looking for every opportunity they have to fight action on climate change. The central motivating force of the Trump administration on this subject is to maximize the supply of and the demand for fossil fuels.
It's said Mr. Trump's experience as a property developer in New York initiated his loathing of environmental red tape. But his administration's agenda openly favours one sector above all. Don't forget, America is the world's largest producer of oil and gas. And the Trump administration has done pretty much all that it can to help them maximise the production of fossil fuels and lock in their use for decades to come. The White House wants to flood the world with American oil and gas, but back home, a new energy race is testing whether America can power itself. This is the Mitsubishi Power Factory outside Savannah, Georgia. They make turbines that turn natural gas into electricity for power stations supplying America's grid. This is one of the world's largest and most efficient gas turbines, and demand for these is skyrocketing as electricity demand in the US is driven upwards by AI and data centres, meaning this factory in Georgia literally can't make them fast enough.
I've been in the industry almost 30 years, and I've never seen the demand be where it's at today.
And as they see it, the Trump administration's pivot towards fossil fuels is the best way to meet rising demand.
We're looking at data centers that are wanting a gigawatt of power. Renewables can't support round-the-clock baseload generation.
As a result, wait times for these gas turbines have doubled, and with the president punishing renewable energy, the fastest and cheapest to build, electricity supply is so tight in the US, utilities are looking to older gas and even coal plants to fill the gaps, all of which is likely locking America into a high carbon future. And by abandoning the global effort to reduce emissions, it leaves others facing the same fate. Take India with 1.5 billion people, all demanding electricity as its economy grows.
India is in a race not only to develop itself, but also against heat, hunger and time. It's one of the world's fastest growing economies, but one of the most vulnerable to the climate crisis.
To power its rise, India has to burn lots of coal. But as deadly heat waves intensify, that same coal is fueling the crisis it's trying to survive. So how do you grow fast, stay cool and go green all at once?
This state of Jharkhand is rich with minerals and has an estimate 40% of the country's natural resources, with coal contributing about a third of the nation's supply.
I am at an open cast mine here in Jharia, one of the largest deposits of coal in this country that has been powering the nation for decades.
Coal keeps India's lights on. It's cheap, domestic and reliable. Nearly 70% of the country's electricity still comes from it.
And I am feeling proud that it is that industry that gives light, that gives energy, that boosting up the progress of the country. And we are confident that we will supply this energy sector for another 100 years.
And energy access remains uneven. 2/3 of India's households still suffer from some degree of energy poverty, facing blackouts, outages and unreliable grid supply.
The government argues that without coal, vital sectors, industry, transport, urban services would stall. The logic is rapid economic growth requires abundant and continuous power.
Millions of people are climbing out of energy poverty, but cutting supply too soon isn't an option.
For a government chasing 8% GDP growth every year, coal feels less like a choice and more like a necessity. But this path carries a deadly double cost. Burning more coal is making the country hotter. But here, there is a larger problem. The coal deposits in the earth and hills have been burning for over a century, spewing smoke, hazardous fumes and gases day and night. Even as people abandon their homes, the fire keeps moving towards them. It reached Kalu Paswan's home and the ground collapsed, destroying everything above. He says, "Where will I go now? I have no place. I will die here and no one is helping us." His son says because mining has exposed the earth, it's getting oxygen to burn and the fire has spread. Coal has been a boon for the country but a bane for this place. Its people remain one of the poorest as more than 40% live under the poverty line. In all social and economic parameters, this state lies at the bottom. The effects of emissions and global warming is taking place across the seas. Arun Pramanik says he lost everything when the Lohachar island where he lived went underwater. The family moved to the adjoining Koramara island, which is now most vulnerable.
We are heading to Goramara Island, one of the islands that is on the front line of the climate crisis.
According to satellite images, sea levels in the Sundarbans have been rising by an average 1.2 inches a year over the last 2 decades. Deepak Patra shows me where his homes used to be. He says each time the embankment broke, we had to move. It's way further up in the sea now. We've come so far from there. He's moved home and hearth 6 times and is now desperate to relocate. With 2/3 of the island eroded, land to grow food crops has shrunk. Frequent cyclones and floodings has made fields saline, ruining crops for multiple seasons. Over the last 15 years, almost half of the population has relocated, making them climate refugees. This group of families are just that, all from Goramara Island. They have taken refuge at the largest Sagar Island. Saima Bibi's home and livestock was swept away when the embankments broke.
সেই ভয়ে আমি গাছে উঠছি জান বাঁচানোর কিছু নেই তখন আর থাকার ইয়ে নেই তবু আমরা ছোট করে ওই বাঁধের উপরে ছিলাম
With no help from the government, the family lives in this mud and bamboo hut with no running water or electricity. They struggle to survive. The frequency and intensity of cyclones, storms and floods in the Sundarbans has increased, battering the natural and man-made defences, making it for the vulnerable for its inhabitants. India has already seen some of the highest levels of disaster displacement of its people, and it's the island communities who are the first to bear the brunt of the climate crisis.
But there is another great player in this game, another great polluter. And there's a dichotomy to its story, one that's shifting the world's climate and perhaps its politics too. In China, you don't have to travel far or look hard to see them. Coal-fired power plants are everywhere. This is Hebei province, a place that powers the capital, and it does so largely with coal. China now consumes nearly 40% more than the rest of the world combined. A colossal rate of development needs a colossal amount of energy. Migrant workers like these are literally building modern China. For them, rapid progress is the priority.
没有这个电力系统的话，整个全部瘫痪，那个也没办法促进的经济啊，老百姓的生活啊，那个造成很大的影响，对不对？这是肯定的必备的。
China's never portrayed itself as a climate leader. It is still the biggest emitter of CO2 by some margin. But on its own terms, to its own timetable, it is radically changing the picture. And it's doing so with these huge investments into renewable technologies. What started as a domestic project has ballooned into a domination of international markets, and it's having a truly global impact. To get a sense of the sheer reach of Chinese renewables, you need to journey down roads infrequently travelled. For us, a bumpy 5 hours to the remote hills of southeastern Laos. This is the Monsoon Wind Power Project, the biggest of its kind in Southeast Asia. 133 turbines. Built by a Chinese contractor, made with Chinese technology. It towers above the rural district of Dak Chung, one of the poorest corners of Laos. You can't help but be struck by the contrast. A good number here cannot read or write. The turbines are a rare glimpse of modernity. They have bought both opportunity and cost.
กับเส้นทางน่ะแล้วก็เฮ็ดเพราะว่ามันไปฮอดมันทั่วมันถึงเด้ถึงไกลก็มีเด้กระทบแบบว่ากระทบดินตัวก็เฮ็ดเส้นทางมันเสาะเจือนแล้วมันก็ทมอันนั้นส่วนเพราะมันทมดินไปคือตัวทางบ่เขาเฮ็ดเส้นทางนี่เฮ็ดเส้นทางแล้วมันเวลาลมพัดมันไหลลงหาส่วนมันเป็นขี้หินลายนี่ขี้หิน
Laos alone could never have built a facility like this. Run by a Thai-led consortium, the energy is transported over 70 kilometres by cable for use in neighbouring Vietnam. Jeremy has worked in this industry for decades. The scale and complexity here a sign of its progress.
After I graduated from university, I worked for a small British wind turbine manufacturer, and I can say we were like a bunch of hippies, you know, but it's become an industry now. You know, the supply chain is a global supply chain. It's really become a mature industry in that you can say it's now mass production.
And there are no prizes for guessing who has largely driven this change. This place was built by a state-owned Chinese company. It employs these workers. Low-cost, advanced tech, and an ultra-fast build. It wouldn't have been viable otherwise.
All this equipment came from China. I'm Chinese, so I'm very proud of it.
What is it about Chinese technology and Chinese development that is so good? Why is China leading this market?
还是非常重视这个研发和这个投入，然后我们也不断的进行一个更新迭代，然后同时我们这个中国政府也支持我们这个新能源的发展，使我们的中方的一些这个新能源企业能走到这个世界前列。
And reach the forefront it has. China now makes at least 60% of the world's mass-manufactured green technologies. In just the first half of this year, it exported $120 billion worth. That's 50% more than the US made in its exports of oil and gas. Advantages clearly abound.
It might seem a little far-fetched to talk about a place like this as a theatre for great power competition. But if the standoff between China and the US is at least in part about the dominance of new markets and technologies, then that is exactly what it is. And even before Trump, China was clearly miles out ahead. Investments like this are not just altruistic for China. They are about money and markets and energy security. And in the long run, they look to have been a pretty good bet, not least because they might also bring political influence too.
During the Vietnam War, these hills were targeted relentlessly by the US. Mines are still being cleared. The symbolism of China building where America once bombed is not lost on the people of Laos. The question is what countries like this might owe in the long term, and what advantages China might reap.
It's nothing less than paradise, a near pristine wilderness overflowing with life, and home to an indigenous people still living on equal terms, pretty much, with their spectacular environment. The Kaipo may look as peaceful and welcoming as their surroundings, but don't be fooled. In the past, they killed those trying to take their rainforest, and have stubbornly enforced ownership ever since. Now, as you drive towards their territory, you can see they're not just up against the continual destruction of rainforest, but a warming climate too.
No, it makes no sense to the forest.
Igor Ferreira has been making this trip for 15 years.
And when you mix this high temperature, you mix the degradation of the forest, you have an explosive situation, you know.
Soon enough, we see smoke on the road. This is how the Amazon is disappearing, by literally going up in smoke. Because of the changing climate, the dry season's getting longer, temperatures are hotter, and there's less rainfall. And that means when fires start, they burn more of the forest.
The Brazilian government has made huge improvements in ending coordinated deforestation. But last year there were 140,000 fires in the Amazon, almost all of them man-made, reversing much of the progress. And once the forest is gone, so does its legal protection, and the cows move in.
This is what the rainforest's up against. Beefonomics. Brazil is the world's largest exporter of burgers and steaks, and when this degraded pasture is grazed out, the land's sold on for other types of agriculture. And that's the crux of this. How does a pristine rainforest financially compete with cows and crops?
Maybe the best answer to protecting the forest from people is a forest with people already in it. And after 6 hours, our journey continues by boat up the Xingu River, before we're made to stop. This is the border of Kaipo territory.
So after 3 hours coming down the river, we're coming up on the Kaipo guard post. This is like Indigenous border control to monitor who's coming in and who's going out of the territory and what they're taking with it.
Of around 300 indigenous groups in Brazil, the Kaipo have been one of the most successful in defending their territory against illegal logging, burning and mining. They've granted us permission to visit, keen to show how their population of just 9,000 protects an area of rainforest the size of Portugal.
I've just figured out the steps. It wasn't easy.
That was absolutely exhausting, but also kind of amazing at the same time. And it's interesting, they say one of the reasons that Kaipo have been so successful in protecting the forest against the pressures of outside and the wider Brazilian economy is because of their strong sense of cultural identity and the kind of unity between the tribes, and you can really kind of see that in evidence here. And they're holding on to it, but at the same time, you know, these people are on their mobile phones, they're filming what we're doing. These are people that understand very well indeed how the rest of the world works.
O nosso pai lutou pela nossa vida, né, pelo nosso território, pela preservação, né, pelo rio e também pela vida de milhares de pessoas, né, onde vivem no mundo, né. Ela traz fonte de alimento, onde nós vivemos, nós caçamos para poder se alimentar, né. Então ali onde a natureza fica, ela traz tudo o que a gente precisa.
From the air, however, you can see the Kaipo's unity isn't perfect. Some clans have given in to offers of cash in return for allowing illegal gold miners to enter the territory, destroying forest, polluting rivers, and providing access for future logging.
That was a really depressing view, seeing the extent of gold mining right along the edge and inside the boundary of the Kaipo territory. This guy was just telling me the government was supposed to have kicked those miners out, but we could see some of them have made their way back in, and so that was really their sort of struggle against the invasion of their territory continues.
Some of these mines were permitted by certain Kaipo clans in exchange for royalties, a source of division among the community.
É triste quando a gente ganha dinheiro fácil. É muito triste. Quando o Cuben chega, cava e não vai tampar. Do jeito que vai estar aí, ele vai embora. Porque a riqueza é nossa. Não é do Cuben. É isso.
Fly fishing in the Amazon is hardly traditional, but a new project, along with ecotourism, that the Kaipo have allowed in an attempt to sweat their rainforest asset rather than burn or bulldoze it for ready cash. Back in a village called Kamokdajam, a Kaipo elder takes us into the forest.
So that Kaipo elder is Takak Noitire, and he wanted to bring us here. He said to walk on this path because it's an ancestral Kaipo path, and he says it's one that no minister or president has ever walked down, and he wants them to know what it's like to walk the path of the Kaipo.
Once we've managed to catch up with him, he tells me how the climate is changing, and that if leaders don't believe it, that's because they live far away in comfortable cities. If that's the case, I ask him, what does he think of Donald Trump? But he's never heard of him. So we're leaving the Kyopo now and we're heading off to the world's 30th climate summit. And what struck me about my visit is the Kyopo really understand climate change, but they don't really care for climate change politics, the politics of white people, as they put it. All they want world leaders to do is see things from their perspective. And the more I think about it, perspective is what the climate debate really needs right now. 3 decades of climate summits have created a lot of turbulence and hot air, but undeniably accelerated a transition to a lower carbon world. As we saw, that's now well underway, but began too late and is moving too slowly to prevent worrying levels of warming, which leaves forests like this, which soak up the carbon we burn and turn it into life, as one of our few insurance policies against a dangerous future.